In Montana, in 1882, Boss Spearman manages a cattle ranch on open land, leading a herd across the countryside with the help of his hired hands, Charlie Waite, Mose, and Budo. Charlie, a former soldier who was part of a special unit during the Civil War, carries guilt about having killed both enemy fighters and civilians. After leaving the military, he worked for people like Baxter and feels somewhat ashamed of that. Budo, the youngest member of the group, is inexperienced and got on Charlie's bad side when he cheated at cards. Boss sends Mose to the nearby town of Harmonville to gather supplies. The town is ruled by a harsh Irish landowner, Denton Baxter, who despises free-range cattlemen. Baxter, who runs his own ranch, has created a significant cattle business and views open rangers as a threat to his profits. Mose ends up suffering a severe beating and is thrown into jail by the town marshal, Poole. The only person in town who shows kindness is Percy, who owns the livery stable. Boss and Charlie start to worry when Mose fails to come back. They manage to get him out of jail after receiving a warning from Baxter, who is eager to get Boss and his men out of the county. Baxter allows the marshal, Poole, to hand Mose over to Boss. However, Mose is badly injured, prompting Boss and Charlie to take him to see Doc Barlow. There, they encounter Sue Barlow, and Charlie is instantly attracted to her, though he mistakenly believes she is the doctor's wife. Mose has suffered a couple of broken ribs. After noticing some masked riders watching their cattle, Boss and Charlie quietly approach their campsite at night. They suspect Baxter is trying to take their herd or scatter it, leaving them with no choice but to defend themselves. Unfortunately, another attack leads to both Mose and his dog being killed, while Budo is severely hurt and left behind. Charlie and Boss promise to seek revenge for the wrongdoing. Charlie persuades Boss to prioritize rescuing Budo by bringing him to the doctor first. They take Button to the doctor's house, where Sue is home alone. She runs some initial checks on Button to ensure his skull isn't fractured, but he has a severe concussion. Doc Barlow had been called by Baxter to care for his men, who had run into trouble in the woods 2 nights earlier. After that, Boss and Charlie head into town, where it's pouring rain and already dark. They end up rescuing a dog from the flooded streets. While at the local cafe, Charlie and Boss encounter Poole, who informs them that he has a warrant for their arrest for attacking Baxter's men. Boss responds by saying that Baxter's men shot and killed Mose and injured Button, who was just 16. He emphasizes that they have no issues with the townspeople but are determined to seek revenge on Baxter. Charlie and Boss head back to Sue's place for the night to check on Button. Boss opens up about his past, sharing that he once had a family who died in an epidemic and he hasn't returned home since. Charlie discovers that Sue is actually the doctor's sister, not his wife. He confesses his feelings for Sue, and she gives him a locket for good luck. Charlie leaves a note with Percy, detailing that if he dies, money from selling his saddle and gear should go towards buying Sue a new tea set, since he accidentally ruined her previous one during a flashback incident. Returning to town, Boss and Charlie receive a heads-up from Percy that Marshall's men are waiting for them at the stables and in their carriage, while Marshall himself sits alone in the jail, waiting to capture them. Boss and Charlie lock Poole in his own jail, with Boss knocking him out using chloroform he took from the doctor's office. They do the same to the deputies, locking them up and knocking them out with chloroform. After checking on Button again, they have breakfast with Sue before going back to town to confront Baxter and his men. Boss purchases chocolate and cigars at the store before they take their positions for the showdown. Boss and Charlie prepare for a showdown with Baxter and his crew. Just before the conflict starts, Charlie reveals to Boss that his real name is Charles Postlethwaite and urges Boss to share his true name too. Boss reveals he's actually Bluebonnet Spearman, but makes Charlie promise to keep it a secret. As Baxter's men get closer, Charlie faces off with them, shooting Butler, the gunman responsible for injuring Button and killing Mose. A fierce gunfight breaks out in the street, with Boss, Charlie, and Percy severely outnumbered until the townspeople start to join the fight against Baxter. Hearing the commotion, Sue rushes into town but gets captured by one of Baxter's men. This act triggers the townsfolk, who deeply respects Sue and her brother, to join the battle in full force. After getting hurt, Baxter went back to Sue's place and found Button there. He took Button to town, forcing Boss and Charlie to reveal themselves. They reached a standstill until Button started shooting. Following a fierce gunfight, Baxter's men, including Marshal Poole and his deputies, were killed. Baxter ended up injured and trapped alone in the jailhouse. Boss broke down the jailhouse door and engaged Baxter in a brief, close-quarters shootout, which left Baxter fatally wounded. Sue's brother took care of the injured townspeople and open-range riders. Charlie had a private conversation with Sue, revealing he had to leave. She responded that she had a big idea about their future together and promised to wait for his return. Charlie eventually came back and proposed to Sue, who accepted. After Button recovered, Charlie and Boss decided to quit the cattle business after delivering their current herd and chose to settle down in Harmonville, taking over the saloon. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.